I'll go ahead and get started. As you notice, we're not gonna have any video today, and it's only me because our team member John is actually welcoming his first newborn child to the world. So baby Logan has taken priority for obvious reasons. So we're holding down the fort without him today. Um, but we'll be excited to have him back next month. So, if you guys know us, we're both locals from South Florida, and we've been doing digital marketing for a bit now. This is our fifth webinar, and it's just part of something that we love doing. We like being able to always go back to the craft of what it is we're doing and talk about it and share that information with other people in the community, and we can all kind of have this discussion to help us grow. So with that said, this is today's agenda, what we're really going to be covering. We're going to do a little quick overview of what the current landscape is like. We're also going to go and talk about branding, but in a simplified breakdown. Then we'll get into the social content strategy, and along the way, I'll provide some examples, resources, and tools that we use. And then we'll get to a point where we open it up for Q&A at the end, as usual. So the first part of this that I wanted to cover was this idea of content and the explosion of it that we've seen in the past few decades. I mean, you go back to the age of traditional pre-internet when it was TV, billboards, magazines were the main sources of media that people were consuming, and advertisers and brands had to get on there, and it was a lot more expensive, and it was a higher level to entry to be able to advertise on those mediums. Then came the internet, a lot more access to people, and at the early stages, you could build a website, but it was not as easy. But they started getting a little bit more in tune with this two-way communication model. And then lastly, where we are today is the age of social and search, and we have all these people convening in these communities like Facebook and Instagram and all these other communities online. And now there's so much content, there's so many people on it, and there's a lot more demand for it. So you look at what's hot right now, and you're talking about video, you're talking about stories on all these different platforms, and going live is also very important. All these different features that are being created as venues for you to create content, they're contributing to this whole content funnel that's going on. There's a lot more that you have to deal with as an advertiser. So what does it all mean? The media landscape is rapidly changing. The attention share is no longer on these other traditional models. They're on social, they're online. And these brands have to stay a lot more fresh and relevant than ever before. So when you look at the pro to that, it's more accessible and affordable than ever to market yourself. Social media and online tools have made it a lot more accessible to people. But at the same time, that means that there's a lot more competition, and you have to create a lot more content to cut through that clutter. So the next follow-up question is, like, where does your brand fit in? How do you fit into this landscape that we're living in right now? And the first thing I wanted to clear up is that branding is not a logo. Slapping on your logo to a piece of content doesn't make it unique, doesn't make a customer emotionally connect with it automatically. Like, branding is a lot more than that. I think the best way to describe it, branding is a disciplined process, and it's about building awareness with a customer and having them have loyalty to your brand over time. So it's not just a transaction, it's more than that. And over the course of reading up on this stuff and getting more in tune with the branding side of things, I'm realizing that many brands don't have a social media issue. They might not know how to use it, but their real issue is that they have a branding issue. So what I really wanted to cover today was learn how to build a brand that has social prowess, but the brand comes first. So we're breaking it up in two simple parts. We have the branding process, which we're going to simplify, and then we have the social content strategy. Let me know if you guys are following along, if this is going at a good pace, or if there's anything else that you want me to stop and address along the way. So obviously this is something you've probably all heard about or done it to some capacity, but it's seriously important to know your audience. We're talking about who are these people, where do they reside, why would they be your customers, where do they go for information? Like, what are their sources of information? Is it family? Is it a review site? You get what magazines are they reading? And then the competitors, what are they using right now? If your product is, let's say it's a wine, what wine companies are they buying right now? Things like that, just to know a basic understanding from a demographic level and a surface level of your customer. But then what I really want you to do is go deeper, and then you need to segment these audiences. So think about what motivates them. Are they motivated by trying to be the best salesperson at their job? Are they motivated by being a family person? Are the interests, is it something like they read books, or they like going to the theaters on the weekends? Like things like this that you need to understand. Recreational habits, maybe they go to the gym, maybe they like biking. Values, what do they value in life, and in their opinions. These are the things that you can really go in and realize that you have a few different audiences you can cater to. You have like a primary audience. Let's say that in your case, it may skew male, and maybe from like the 25 to 45, but then you realize that there's another secondary audience that might skew female that uses your product for a completely different reason. So that messaging has to be separated. And it's good to do that at the beginning so that you don't catch yourself just casting the same message across the board. The next step is really to define what your mission is. What at the end of this, once you know your audience, what do you want to accomplish? What is your promise to them? And this will help guide you when it comes to the point of deciding what kind of content you're going to create. And you're going to realize that once you get a little further in the presentation. But if you look at Amazon.com, like right now, it says their vision is to be Earth's most customer-centric company, to build a place where people can come to find and discover anything they might want to buy online. So when you think about that, it's pretty broad, but you can exactly tell where they're trying to go with this. And mind you, this was completely different back in '97 when what their mission was actually focusing in more on online marketplace, but with a focus on books only. So obviously they've expanded to the point. You have to keep in mind that your mission might change over time, your goals might change, but you need to set this so that you know where you stand at that moment. The next phase is scoping out the competition. So you have a few tools out there like SEMrush, you have Google, Facebook offers some tools, and we're going to go through those right now. John's the one that pretty much put this together, and he knows more about this, but for the most part, SEMrush is one of the tools you can use to analyze your competition. So you can look at their domain and see where they're ranking. You can see what keywords are coming out for, how much they're spending on paid, maybe Google ads, who's linking back to them, who's talking about them, like is there a publication that just published an article about them. So you can understand where they stand and where they are in the market. And also that it's a paid product to use that. I believe there's a free trial, so you could try it out anyway. But it's if you really get to the point of competitive research, like this provides a lot of information for a decent price. The next one is obviously free. You have Google, and once you know who your competition is, you can start looking at what information is available. Like, what do their profiles look like? How do they talk about themselves through these different results that are available? Because this is what people see. So you have to understand what your target customer is seeing when they're searching for them. The other part you can use is the Facebook pages to watch feature. If you have a Facebook page, it lets you follow a few competitors, and this will let you see, how many posts they've been doing throughout the week, what kind of engagement it got, all this kind of stuff that lets you see where they are and where you stack up against them. So maybe you're not posting as much as them, but you're getting more engagement. These are things to know about, to know where you stand from a competition level. And then last but not least, you have the brand identity, which you have to set. And I think there's many stages to this, but really these three things are crucial. And it's having a brand story. What is this unique story you want to tell to the public that sets you apart from just being a plumber, or just being a wine company, or just being a digital marketer. You have to find that story and tell it. And that takes a little bit of soul searching and a little bit of time to brainstorm. But I think that once you have that, it's an awesome guide to have every step of the way. And then you can think about how to tell that story in different ways, what aspects you want to focus on. Once you're done with that, you set the tone. What's your voice going to be like? Are you going to be fun and playful? Are you going to have more tongue-in-cheek kind of approach when you talk? So that's where you position your brand, and you determine how you're going to talk, whether it's on a graphic, on text, in a comment, all that kind of stuff. And then last but not least, you need to have a visual representation. You need visual guidelines with your logo, the branded assets, colors of what your brand stands for, all these things is in a central location so that your creative team can have access to it and always stay on brand. There's actually a tool available called Frontify, which is basically brand guidelines available online. It's almost like a template where you drop in the logo, you drop in the colors and a few other pieces of information, and it sets it up for you so that you can always access that in case there's any question as to what colors you should be using or what font you should be using. So that's available. There's actually a good amount of free features, and there's a paid version as well. And using Google Drive and Dropbox is huge to collaborate on files and assets that you need to share with your creative team. So what we've covered on the branding side is basically you know your audience now, you define your mission and your goals, you've scoped out the competition, and now you've set that brand identity. So you know where you stand, and now you can move forward with actually the social strategy side of it. And when it comes to social strategy, can you repeat that? The name of the actual brand guidelines, it's Frontify. I could go back to it if you want, but I could also put a link in the Facebook group, so if anything, we could always follow up there. But going back to the social content strategy, we have 4 stages to this. We have creating the content funnel, which is the first thing you definitely got to do. Then you can break down content into these different buckets we're going to talk about. We'll outline a plan for social ads, at least a way to approach it, and then a few tools and things to take into consideration when you're setting up the content calendar. So this is pretty simplistic, but it's important. The content funnel is how you're going to determine what kind of content you're going to come out with and at what stages. So let's say you're a new brand, you need a lot more awareness. Nobody knows who you are. You got to get out there. So maybe you're going to dedicate a lot more time in the beginning to just doing brand awareness, exposure, getting in front of people. So you're just kind of like using things to get people aware of what you do and where you stand. The next level would be consideration. Once you got people following you and they might be closer to the point of maybe looking into your brand a little bit more, you can drive them to the website. You can they'll start engaging on your content, or maybe they'll opt into your newsletter for deals or anything like that. So now you have them a little bit further down, and you craft content that's specific to that. Then the last part, well, not really the last part, but an important part is the conversion. They actually purchase from you. They attend your event or they hire you, and this is what you ultimately wanted. But there's one more phase after that. There's amplification. These are the people who follow you. They're your regulars. They're your core customer base, and they're going to be the brand ambassadors. They're going to be out there talking about your brand. You should continue to give them a reason to be proud that they follow your brand, and that's, you have to have content that kind of like goes towards that end too. So once you have all that and you figure that side of it, you start categorizing your content into these little buckets. And these buckets can be like topics related to your business. So let's say you're in the wine industry. You want to talk about something that happened in Napa Valley, or something that happened in the industry, or maybe like techniques that are used to aerate your wine or something along those lines. So these are topics that are related to you. Then you can talk about benefits of what you specifically offer, something unique that's different from others, or specials and promotions, and you know that that's a separate content bucket. Or if you have events that come along all across the course of a year, you know that you're going to have to talk about and save room for events. So there's a lot of these different things, and you can go really deep into all these different buckets. The main thing about having it is for when you're going to actually schedule the content, you distribute it later on, and we'll talk about that. So now you also have to set aside a plan for social ads, because really, it's like I keep saying, it's pay to play. You got to have a budget set aside for it, because you're not going to get the results that you used to get. So you determine whatever that budget is. Let's say it's like $1,000. Then you determine how to allocate it, based on that content funnel we talked about. So look at the bottom. We have this example of maybe in the first month, since you're new, we're really going to focus on brand awareness. We're going to spend 75% of that ad budget on brand awareness and maybe a little bit towards consideration. People drive them to your website, get them a little bit more familiar with your brand. The second month, maybe now you have a little bit less brand awareness and you amp up a little bit more from the consideration and possibly conversions. This is all a mock example. There's a lot of technical variables that we got to like talk about specific to each situation, but in general, this is something that you can look at it from a top level understanding and say, all right, at the beginning, this is our plan because we're new, we got to get out there, and then we figure out how to deploy these pieces of content to that end. Chris is asking, so over the 3 months we spend 3K. Yeah, if we were to go down this path and we say a $1,000 monthly budget, yeah, it would be 3K by the third month. There's other options too where you can front load and have a higher budget in the first month so you can test out more and learn and really hone in on who your audience that's converting is, and then you can then tailor off the budget and the following months because you've already optimized it. You don't have to spend as much to reach these people. You've already gotten to the point where this audience is going to respond to this, and you've optimized it in the first month. So there's a few different ways you can go about it. So then there's obviously the social content calendar side of it, and that's where the content buckets come in. So let's say you look at the week Monday through Friday, and you know that on Mondays you're going to talk about that special you have, and then on Wednesdays you have another special event. So you have to save room for you to drop pieces of content that go towards that promotion or whatever you're trying to talk about that day of the week. So these content buckets help you spread out your content and talk about different things while still being part of the unified brand strategy you created. And that's how you're able to distribute all this and have something that can go over the course of many months and not, one piece of content that you do well for 1 week and then you stop doing it next week. So after that, you really got to break it down. You can do it either quarterly, so in 3 month span. You can do it monthly, just what's going on in the month ahead, or weekly. We don't like scheduling out too far in advance for our clients because things change and there's a lot of things that you have to pivot on. But having a week in advance is good. Having at least it planned in terms of what you're going to post and at least have that set up will give you peace of mind so you don't find yourself waking up and figuring out what do I got to post today. So also when you're doing the schedule, leave room for spontaneous content. You don't have to load it all up. You could, and then but have some that are movable. Pieces of content that aren't gonna have to be posted that day because you're gonna pretty much flood your feed with things that in case something new comes up and you want to hit on it, you're not gonna have room to actually do it unless you put more ad dollars behind it. So that's really what we do. Some of the tools that we use is like Google Slides to kind of set up, the image, the caption, what day of the week it's going out, and maybe a link to the graphic in case someone else needs to post it. Are there recommended number of content you should post? We'll talk about that in the Q&A session, but there's not really a set number, but we'll cover that in a bit. Back to the collaborative tools. Google Slides is huge because anyone can access it, anyone can collaborate on it, and it just makes it visually easy to see what graphic is going up, what caption's going up, and what day it's going up on. So that kind of stuff just makes it simple to track and have to reference back to. Sprout is one of the tools that we use for scheduling and engaging on social media, so we can schedule out a week, a month in advance. You can also see stats. We use that for setting up the calendar. And Slack is something that we use internally to talk with our team, our clients, and bounce off ideas or any important details about something that might have to get posted online on social media. Same thing with Evernote. You can use it to collaborate on documents and share notes that you create. So to give you an example of one of our clients, and this is pretty out there, but this is one of our clients down here in Westchester. It's a brewery, and the internal story that we told ourselves would be the anchor, the guide that we would always look back to is Lincoln's beard is the drinking buddy that's as weird as family. So everything we create has to go back and resonate with that statement. So we created this campaign to introduce the family members. These are all people who work at the brewery. They're all unique. They all have their quirks, and everyone is just one big weird family. So we decided to highlight them individually, but as a whole, they're all part of the weirdos. And this is a way to kind of take a brand story that you told at the beginning and kind of extend it and start going a little bit deeper. So, and to go further than that, this weird family does weird things. So instead of Cinco de Mayo, we have Mauricio, who's our bartender there, and we Cinco de Mayo because there was nothing Mexican about the brewery, so we could not technically celebrate something like that. So we decided to go this other route and at least have something that's tongue in cheek and funny. Same thing with at the top, you'll see a few people dressed up in wrestling attire and they're having a peanut butter and jelly eating competition. So this is, again, going back to the story, there's one thing to create a brand story. It's another thing to actually manifest it. Like we can do all the marketing and all the design that we can talk about, but if the client or if the brand itself doesn't execute or do these things, there's going to be a disconnect. We can't say that we're weird and then you show up and it's crickets and it's just very run-of-the-mill stuff at any other brewery. In this very case, we decided to go out and create content that resonates with what we were talking about, being weird, being family-oriented, and obviously being a brewery. So these are just some examples that we created, and it's different from the traditional, but it all goes back to having a brand strategy that coincides with a social strategy. Another example that you guys probably are a little bit more aware of is Narcos. And Narcos had a campaign where they did a segment of learn Spanish with Narcos, and they'll say certain words. Like you'll see on the right, it says sapo, snitch. But what I really wanted to point out in this graphic is if you look at the very bottom, when I went back to setting the tone and what your voice and your attitude is going to be, Narcos stayed on message and stayed with that tone by responding to that comment below where it says, the funny thing is that he isn't even Hispanic, he's Brazilian. And Narcos, in very crude, direct, and no damn given approach, they said irrelevant with a period. And that's just staying on brand. And that's something that's powerful because, look, more people ended up liking the Narcos comment than they actually liked the guy above it. So people resonated with that response. And it's little things like that that kind of get people attached to a brand. So one final thing that I wanted to leave you guys with is this quote where it says, a well-defined, easy to articulate strategy, it makes everything intuitive. So like I said, with Lincoln's Beard, for us, it's been looking back at that one statement that we can go back to has made it so easy for us to decide, all right, we're going to go with this, we're going to post that, and we're going to create content around these different ideas because we set this all up at the beginning. And it's very crucial to have that as an anchor so that you don't find yourself going in a million different directions and losing sight of what your brand is along the way. So some final notes for you is make sure you define your brand up front before you start going around and going crazy posting on social media. Once you have that brand, align it with your social strategy so it all coincides. And make sure you're planning all this with an ad budget in mind. Like I said, it's very difficult to get organic results. It's going to take a lot more time. If you're down for that, then go for it. But it's becoming more and more pay to play. So you really have to plan your strategy and the content you're going to be posting with an ad budget in mind. And then make sure you're providing value to these customers. Like create content that you think they deserve. Create content that, if you were in their shoes, you'd really appreciate, because that's really how you set yourself aside. If you're just here to collect a paycheck or run business as usual without anything different, then you can't expect to stand out, and you can't expect for any different results than what the average is. So, that's pretty much it. If you guys would like to join our Facebook group, we're always sharing these different ideas and different concepts that we come across. The link is right there, and we'll add you. So we'll pretty much open it up to Q&A in case any of you have any questions. I think I'll go and I'll start. I'll answer Camille's question about content, how much should be posted each day. There is no set number, right? Especially on Facebook, you can post 15 times, and each time it'll probably diminish the amount of reach you have. So it's not like the more you post, the more you'll get. It's more about what you're posting at what time, and if you're going to push it with any kind of ad budget to really get it in front of the people you want. So that's really what it goes down to on Facebook specifically. On Instagram, you want to have at least a regular posting pattern, whether it's 5 times a week, once a day, maybe you can't produce that much content 3 times a week. Just something consistent so that you stay on top of it and you don't fall off the map, so that your followers don't feel like you are not engaging with them and not being a part of the community. Hope that, I don't know if that answers your question though. So let me know. Okay, cool. So is there anything that you guys came in thinking that was going to get covered that didn't get covered? Because we have plenty of time to be able to dive into these different topics. I mainly open it up because I like being able to directly answer whatever you guys are dealing with, as opposed to just kind of giving a presentation that goes on and on. So if you guys have any of those questions, let me know. So does it look bad when an account has like 30,000 followers and only 100 likes per post, or does it not really matter? I mean, it looks a little bit suspect in terms of who really are your followers if the engagement rate is that low. Um, that there's people with way less followers that get average 100 likes or a certain amount of engagement. So it does look back to a certain extent, but it's becoming less and less about the sheer amount of followers you have and more about what quality of followers you have and how much impact you have with them. Like, how influential are you online, that you can have your 20,000 followers are better than the 100,000 of someone else, because they're going to react and they're going to actually take action. So that's what matters more to me. And I'd rather build that from the core and not really go and get a bunch of fake followers or iffy followers to make you look like you have a lot more going on. So it says, do you have any specific advice for branding and social regarding B2B? Um, I mean, B2B probably involves a little bit more, maybe LinkedIn, but that also becomes more about the salespeople and the people on the ground. I don't know if, having a company page on LinkedIn and promoting that way is the sole way to go about it. It's more about empowering the salespeople and the people who are going out and making these deals happen, to have a social presence that's backed with a brand that it's powerful. Like that's the kind of way that I would approach it for B2B, so that it's harder to kind of have those discussions. But there are some industries that have a good B2B community on like Facebook or Twitter, so you got to look out for those things. That would be my advice in terms of where you're going to set yourself up and where to look for them. In reference to the content, rules and legalities on using copywritten content. For example, I see businesses use pictures and clips from movies. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that the technology hasn't gotten to the point where they're scanning for clips from a movie that's copywritten. They're obviously flagging songs because they have the technology built in, but sooner or later, I'm sure they'll start flagging things for copywritten, stealing from a movie or some sort of copywritten video. So yeah, that the rule of thumb is just if you feel like you're stealing, just don't do it. Unless you can find a unique twist, like a parody to it or something different to change it, because you're risking it coming down, especially if you're going to use that to promote your brand. It's not going to look good at being up for like a day and then it's done. So does reach decrease once I stop paying ads on a Facebook? Well, I mean, with ads, you're going to get more reach in general because you're boosting that post. You're pushing out a piece of content, and Facebook's like forcing it in front of a certain audience. So yeah, reach will decrease, but it's separate from organic. Organic stays wherever it's at. Usually, they're saying that organic reach is in like below 5% at this point. So you might get 4% or 5% depending on the post, but it's not going to drastically change if you stop paying ads. Like, they're not going to penalize you for not using their ads platform. They're just not going to promote you. So build up from the salespeople first while establishing a brand. I mean, you can have a brand page, you can have content up there that, have pieces of content that they could share. How about that? Stuff that they could go out and, whether it's a blog post or whether it's something that you shared from the company, like instead of trying to get in front of the ultimate potential customer, which will be another business, and it's harder to do on Facebook, make content that the salespeople. For instance, we've worked with real estate clients where really the content we're creating is going to the real estate brokers, not the buyers, because the development company wants them to share it. They're going to be the ones going on selling the property in the different units. So by giving them good content that they can repost, that they can share on their channels, it makes them look better. It makes them and your brand look more professional. So it's a win-win there. That's part of like the whole process of having a brand that extends to the ground, and the people that you deal with, whether they're the cashier or the salespeople or the person all the way at the top. Branding is, like I said, a process, and it's something that has to be consistent every step of the way. So I'm not sure, did I answer all those, or is there anything that I missed? The biggest mistake you see businesses make on social media, um, waiting, waiting. You're just gonna wait until it hits critical mass. They're gonna wait until it's a little bit more certain. They're gonna wait until it's too late, which is what a lot of them are doing. And then by the time that they come back and they're asking about things that are no longer relevant, I've had people ask me like, I want to be on 10 different social media profiles. I want my company on. I'm like, why? Like, it's not about how many you're on. It's not about that kind of stuff. At the beginning, it might have been. At the beginning, it might be, a shotgun approach. But nowadays, it's about focusing on the few platforms that you really can hone in on. If you have enough money and a big enough team, you can do all of them. But it's almost better to sit down and focus in on a few of them that you can dedicate your budget to, that you can focus your efforts and make sure you can have more impact, and track those results instead of doing everything at once. Can I add a song to a slideshow on Instagram? Would it be taken down? Um, yeah, it probably will be taken down if it's a copywritten song. I think that there are there's a certain length that you can record of a song. I think I don't know if it's like eight beats out of it. I'm not sure what the actual measurement is, but there's a certain amount you can get away with. But for the most part, they're getting better and better at recognizing songs and flagging them. So unless you find some royalty-free songs, or something that's free to use online, you might risk that. And you could appeal it too. Most times they just flag it and it goes down. Um, if you appeal it, sometimes they'll put it right back up, and they'll pretty much wait for like the person that has their copyright being infringed upon to go for further action. If anything, like they'll wait for that artist to come and approach you or something, or flag it again. Going back to marketing for IT company who, yeah, what was the rest of that part? No worries. Um, so yeah, I mean, in general, for commercials on the radio, for other things that it's been that same measurement. I mean, don't quote me on it being 8 beats, but that's just something that, or it's, I don't know if it's 8 counts. I don't have a music background, so I'm honestly not the best equipped to answer that question. Are there any social platforms you would recommend marketing besides Facebook and Instagram? Um, Depending on your audience, if you have like a younger audience or like some sort of niche audience, you might look into certain uh, profiles like Tumblr, even Pinterest. It's more for niche audiences, but I found out that Tumblr has the second highest user engagement based on time spent on the platform. I think it is per month. Um, so it might not have as many followers as these other platforms, but the few that are on it, they're actually spending a lot of time on it. So it might be worth looking into that if you find that your business has some sort of synergy there. Like if there's a community for beer lovers and you're a brewery, or if there's a community for art, and then you find that this kind of art is kind of big on Tumblr. So those are things you would have to do a little bit more research. But yeah, there's a few out there, but the main dogs right now are Facebook and Instagram. Snapchat is coming in with a few other options for a younger audience too. So that's something to keep track of, but they don't really have their analytics and their targeting set as good as Facebook. Good example about companies that use Tumblr how to integrate to your market. Look up a company called Trolley Bright Crawlers. The gummy worms. So Trolley has a website called weirdlyawesome.com. They made that website on Tumblr. They didn't even make it a WordPress site or anything else. They made it specifically on Tumblr, and they have that whole weird brand look and feel going on. So you should see the stuff they're doing. It's pretty cool. Use a lot of GIFs, a lot of funky animations, and you could tell that they're doing a good job of it. It looks really cool. Um, for me, I don't like the watermarking all images. I don't like doing like it's cool to throw in maybe an icon or your logo sometimes, but like I said at the beginning, slapping on a logo or something like that, even a small watermark doesn't make your piece of content ultimately unique. It's the way that you're shooting that photo, the way that you're designing it, the colors, the look and feel, the message you're trying to get across with that piece of content. That's what the brand where the brand shines. Like there are a lot of times where you'll see these images that are so powerful, and automatically that they're from this one company because they have that look and feel to that brand, and you don't even have to see their logo to understand that it was theirs. So that's really what you ultimately want to build, a look and feel that people can like resonate with and understand regardless of whether your logo is even there. Either way, when you're posting this, unless someone else is reposting, um, you're it's coming from your profile, so your name and your logo is already attached to it. If you're saying for other people that want to repost and retweet, for the most part, people should be giving credit. Like they should just be tagging you or whatever the case may be in there, so that uh, either way, if someone's really interested, they'll click your icon or whatever it is to go check out what your page is about. Okay, so B2B, nobody's documented the demographics of our current clients. How should I go about trying to gauge who our audience is without that pre-existing knowledge? I want to know who my target is when running social media ads. Um, you can start by looking at what your competitors are doing and who's engaging with them. Once you get a better feel for the kind of people that are engaging and following them, that at least gives you a little lead. Like, oh, it seems to be like these people who are C-level executives, or it tends to be these people that live in this area. And there's tools to do that. Like I said, there's Facebook has the pages to watch. There's audience insights too that you can use. That you can import an email list, and you can import other things to see what kind of tendencies and interests that your current audiences might have. Um, Use other tools online that have like SpyFu can show you SpyFu and SEMrush are a few that you can use to actually track what your competitors are doing online, and some of them give actual demographic and insight on their audiences. So it's a lot of research, but the tools are available out there, and I think that it's going to go down to, you can also run some small campaigns towards certain audiences and see if it resonates with them, and that could be a way to showcase whether it's an audience that resonates with you. Because I had a client that was a snacks brand that's based out of Colombia, and we thought that they were going to be targeting more like outdoors people that both equally male and female, and just health conscious. And then we realized that there was like a really strong niche for people who health and wellness bloggers, as well as moms who were very health conscious about what they fed their children. So we didn't know about this entering it until we started pushing out some little pieces of content that gave us more insight. When they started engaging with it, and we started seeing that these little communities were actually talking about the brand. Um, that's also another way, like seeing if anyone's talking about a brand right now and seeing who they are and where they hang out. So those are at least little nuggets of ways to go about seeing who your audience is, or at least finding out if you have a niche audience that you can tackle. Um, Canva is definitely one of them. I think Adobe has a free one called Adobe Spark. It's similar. There was another app that lets you put text um, over images and graphics called it was either called Over, or there was another one called Word Swag. So there's a few of them. I mean, I have a list that I could share in the Facebook group. I think we have an ongoing document too. Um, but yeah, those are a few. There was one called Vector without the O that I believe is a free design tool similar to like Photoshop. Um, and then there's another app called Ripple that has these like pre-made templates of animated, um, graphics that come in and out, and you could change the text. So if you want to promote something, I've seen a few brands using it. But that's also template. So after a while, it's gonna look like everyone else is using it. So that's the only thing to be worried about when you get assets that are just gonna be a template that anyone could use and you don't customize it at all. Because then after a while, if too many people use it, other customers will recognize like, oh, it's just some template, cookie cutter stuff. So you might start off with it and mess around with it, but then always be willing to take it a step further and customize it, or move up to a different style that still matches your brand. No problem. See a few more people typing. Still have about, you know, 10, 15 minutes here, so open to any other questions or comments. If you guys have any suggestions for future topics that you want us to possibly discuss, we haven't announced the next one yet. Um, but we're in the stages of actually brainstorming what we're going to be doing, and we have a few ideas, but we'd rather hear from you too if there's any suggestions you guys have. Yeah, and we'll be sharing. Lewis, I don't know if you're already a member of a Facebook group, but if not, please join. We'll add you to it, and we'll share it there. I'll find that document that I think we shared a few, maybe a month ago, or so, that we can update with other tools and stuff that you can look at. Yeah, this presentation, like I can send you the PDF if you want. If not, you can wait until we actually have the full recording set up, and we can post it on YouTube. So those are the two options. If you really want the presentation, I can send you the PDF. Um, Otherwise, well, we'll have the whole thing fully recorded on sometime next week. Plugin for WordPress to set up automatic payments. Not really. I mean, there might. I don't know if PayPal. It usually ends up being a feature that a either your accounting software or your payment processor has, whether it's PayPal. I have recurring payments through my accounting software, not through the website. So it would be possibly something that integrates from that to WordPress, not necessarily something that you can just find on WordPress that's separate to, because obviously it's going to be bank information and that kind of stuff. So it's usually going to be linked to one of those payment processors or your accounting software, or maybe even directly from your bank. Like I know Bank of America is doing some things for payment processing. What's the name of the group to join? Just look up Level Up Webinar or Level Up Webinar Series on Facebook, and it should be the Facebook group. All right. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, I'll let you guys enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. And thanks for joining us today. So I'll post all that stuff on the Facebook group, and I look forward to having you guys at another webinar soon. Thank you. Take care, guys.